Hello and welcome to Mostly Sapphic Books, where I read mostly sapphic books. Normally I do a lot of book reviews, that's what I focus on, but today I have something a little different. I have a reading wrap-up for the month of March, but not everything I read in March. I actually read like 19 books, give or take. Some I started in February and finished in March, some I started in March and finished in April, or am currently still reading. But these are all the books that I didn't make a singular review on, just because I didn't have a lot to say, or not all of these books are sapphic, so they don't necessarily fit the theme, but I wanted to do a reading wrap-up because part of the reason I film these videos is so that I can remember all these books. I read a lot, and when books aren't, my top of the tops, my absolute favorites, I don't always remember every single thing about them. Sometimes I'll see a book from like 7 years ago that I've marked as read, and I've never seen that book in my life. I have no idea what that is. So I want to remember more books. So I'm filming a miscellaneous wrap-up of all of some of the random books that I read this month. I'll start with 2 NetGalley arcs that I read, actually. So thank you to the publisher for letting me read these early. I read A Vampire in the Bathhouse by Niko Izuki. This is a fun, lighthearted comedy, like cozy fantasy manga about a vampire who travels from the demon realm into the human realm and ends up going to this Japanese bathhouse and loving it and bonding with the owner of the bathhouse and his family and just having these charming little shenanigans in the human world. No lesbians in this. It's gay, sort of. The male vampire flirts a few times with the male bathhouse owner, but that doesn't really go anywhere. Honestly, it feels, I don't want to say queer baity, but like sort of like it teases that it's going to be a bigger deal than it actually is, and you get a lot of that teasing in the beginning and then it doesn't follow through in the end. And then there's a plot about because the vampire has feasted on this bathhouse boy, they're sort of bonded, and there's these lore rituals about in order to fully restore his power he would have to mate with his bonded human, but that doesn't happen, so it's completely pointless to even bring that up. And then it feels queer-baited, like you expect that to happen at some point, but it doesn't go there. But it was a fun, cute little fantasy manga, one-off, one-shot, standalone. I mostly enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. It was nice, just not as romance heavy as I thought it would be. I also read a poetry collection, Lone Yellow Flower by Erika Gill. I believe this author is non-binary. This is I suppose it's sort of memoir-esque, autobiographical poems in a way. I'm not poetry disciplined. That's not my focus. I don't read a lot of poetry. I'm trying to read more poetry. I do like some poetry. I'm sort of picky about poems, but I actually like this one. I found it quite accessible. Some poems are just too out there. They're too personal to the author in a way that you just can't understand unless you know that person and know their lives. But this is quite accessible. It's easy to read. Most of these poems are very, I could understand them as a dumb non-poetry person. I found the writing quite nice. This was a pretty good poetry book. One of the better poetry books I've read. But again, I don't read a lot of them, so maybe that's not a high bar. But I have definitely read worse. I like this book. I also gave this 4 stars. If you're looking for queer poets, this is a good shout. For actual sapphic books, I read a graphic novel called Kiss Number 8 by Colleen, Venable, and Ellen Crenshaw. I like this. I also gave this 4 stars. I just didn't have a lot to say about it. It's a very rich graphic novel, actually. There's a lot of depth in these characters. There's a lot of like history. These feel like real people. It's about a girl in a Catholic school who realizes she's a lesbian. It's told through the framework of her first 8 kisses. She kisses all of these random boys and she doesn't like it and she hasn't found the right person, and her 8th kiss is with a woman, and that changes things. This isn't necessarily primarily focused on her being queer or her kisses, really. It starts off being about the romance and the kisses, but it evolves more into a family plot. She finds out her dad's been keeping the secret. There's a trans storyline in this that I really liked. A trans mask storyline. Also good themes of friendship and maybe having the wrong friends when you're a teenager and trying to find the right friends and find your crew and people who accept you and treat you well. I found this pretty rich. That's a good word to describe it. It's quite thoroughly plotted out. There's sort of a lot going on, but in a good way, like in a depth of character way. These characters aren't tunnel visioned in on one focus. They have many aspects to their life. Like the main character, she has her family life, she has her hobbies, she likes baseball, she has church, she has school, she has this sort of music venue where she hangs out. So she has her eggs in a lot of different baskets because that's how human beings work. We're very multifaceted and we do a lot of things, and that gets portrayed quite well in this novel, I think. So this is pretty good. Just didn't have super much to say about it. The art's nice as well. I suppose it was fun. Then I read Fragments of Us by Parker Riley, which is a psychological sort of mystery novel about grief. I believe this is self-published, and I believe it is a debut self-publish. I didn't love this, to be honest, but I don't want to be mean to a debut self-publish. I'm not gonna hold a debut self-published book to the same standards as a traditionally published novel. I liked the idea of the mystery in this. The main character is sort of spiraling with grief and has lost her mind, and at first you don't know what's real and what's not real. It really feeds you little pieces of this mystery constantly, and you're always wondering, like I want the reveal, like I want more of this. I really want to know what happened because the character is so invested in it, but it is quite repetitive. A lot of the scenes are her alone, and then someone knocks on the apartment door. That happens so many times. I suppose it's representative of how she isolates herself during grief and trying to maintain her life in the same way, with the same like consistency, since her life has been completely unraveled. So I mean, it makes sense, but it gets repetitive after a while. I didn't particularly love it. It was hard to get a good sense of the character before she went crazy, because she's crazy in this book, which is the point. But it was just hard to picture her life, her regular life, and some of the side characters' lives, and it was just not my thing. I didn't love everything about it. But again, it's a debut self-published, so I'm not gonna shit on a self-published. I will shit on a traditionally published book. That's bad though, because this book was reviewed by editors and marketers and publishers and the publishing house, and got given money to market this, and was a multi-person production telling me that this book was good and that it was worth my time, and it was not. Animal Instinct by Amy Shearn. I was gonna make a review on this, and it was gonna be a really long rant, but then I wrote a really long review, and I just kind of got it out of my system, and I just didn't have the energy to sit down and make a long, annoying video about this book. This just wasn't good. It's a cool idea. It's about a recently divorced 42-year-old mother of 3 that takes place during the height of lockdown. She's living on her own, and she's starting to date again for the first time, and she's really just sleeping around. She's not looking for anything serious. She goes on these dates with men and women, and she realizes that all of these people are imperfect. She likes parts of them but dislikes other parts of them, and she's a software engineer, an app developer, whatever that means, a genius app developer she's known as, and she decides that she's going to take all of the best parts of these people and feed it into an AI so that she can have an AI chatbot partner, which sounds like a cool idea, except it's not executed well at all. She ends up just feeding everything into this AI, very unethically, just feeds absolutely everything. Movies she likes, all of her text conversations with everyone, just Wikipedia articles. She just feeds everything into this AI, so it's just literally any AI chatbot. It's not even a custom built based on these specific people chatbot, and it's not good. It's so basic, and she treats this like this is the most human chatbot imaginable. Like, she's created an AI and she wonders if it's sentient because it sounds so human, but it does not sound human at all. It literally sounds like a customer service support chatbot, and she feels like she's done this great invention, like she's really achieved something here, and I'm pretty sure these existed before 2020, because it's just a fucking customer support chatbot. This was tagged sci-fi on Goodreads for some reason. It's not a sci-fi, it's just literary fiction, but it's not even good literary fiction. All of these characters are just stereotypes. Oh my god. She is the most recently divorced mother of 3 you can imagine. Her ex-husband is this annoying, the most annoying ex-husband you can imagine. The best friend is just the best friend she meets for drinks so she can gossip, and they don't have like this very deep relationship at all. All of these characters are very shallow. She even the dates, she literally refers to them as the woman, the rocker. They get these like stereotypical titles because everyone in this book is just a stereotype, but not in like an overplayed statement on society way. It's just bad writing. Maybe I do have the energy to make a rant video about this. Maybe that's what this is turning into. But oh god, these people were just insufferable. And then you have like all this COVID stuff where she's like breaking COVID rules and like kind of feeling bad about it, but not really. And then like weird stuff where she mentions going to Black Lives Matter rallies, but like just mentions going there. She'll spend all of this time talking about her chatbot or going on these dates or, you know, swiping on Tinder and going to these protests, like these like big day-long events. It's just like throwaway lines to like make you know that she's a good person. And it feels like really like tone deaf in a way. It doesn't feel like she actually cares about them because she does not think about them at all. She spends absolutely no time talking about this. She just offhandedly mentions, I went to a Black Lives Matter rally, and then there's pages and pages of her on Tinder. That was just weird and tone deaf. And again, she's breaking these COVID rules to go sleep with all these people, and like there's never any consequences to that. There's a point where her neighbor gets COVID. Her neighbors are this elderly couple, and the husband gets COVID, and the wife is home alone because she can't go to the hospital to see her husband. And the main character is like, wouldn't it be great if this lady had my chatbot? Because then she could have someone to flirt with while her husband is gone. It's like, her husband is in the hospital fucking dying. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And she's like, I'm gonna help this old lady. I'm gonna go to the store and buy her whiskey so that she can drown her problems. She literally refers to this as helpful and wholesome. And I'm like, no. Drowning your sorrows in alcohol is not helpful or wholesome. No one's ever thought that, ever. She's just, what an out of touch character who was not likable at all. And again, she's like a tech genius. I don't think so, buddy. Just an unlikable character. It was so easy to root for, right? Like, of course, there are women in terrible relationships who get divorced and then discover that they have this freedom and like find their sense of self. And that's such an easy thing to root for. And you've turned it into such an unlikable character. Even that stereotype of a freely divorced woman who can discover herself, you've somehow managed to turn that unlikable. Interesting. I didn't like this book. I didn't have a good time reading it. I wanted it to be over. I did blow through it. It's very easy to read. Like, it's very fast-paced. But I was partially blowing through it because I wanted it to be done. I didn't like these people. Probably about 70% of the way through this book, I realized that there's no anchoring goal. There's no goal here. In most books, there's one achievable goal. You know, I'm gonna get to this place, or I'm gonna kill this person in revenge, or whatever. And her goal, I guess, is to build this chatbot and make an app of it, but that doesn't happen, and that's not really her goal. Like, she's never like, okay, I'm gonna make this chatbot and I'm gonna sell it and I'm gonna be a millionaire and that's the plan, or anything like that. It's just, she's just kind of vibing during COVID, you know, I'm gonna date around, see what's going on, and then I'm gonna, you know, work on this project in my spare time, just see what happens. And so the ending, like, lesson, moral, not lesson, moral, the ending resolution that it comes to is she ends up finding true love again. It should have been hammered more in the beginning that she wants love, but she's just so jaded from this divorce that she doesn't think love exists. It doesn't read that way. It just reads like, that's too much going on. I just want something casual for now. I've upended my life. Everything's weird because of COVID. I'm just not looking for anything serious, which is fine. But then the end resolution is, no, true love is real. She does find true love again. And it's like, that wasn't teased in the beginning as being the moral to the story. But okay, sure, whatever. And she just like happens into it. Like it's really random. Like she just meets this perfect person and then everything just kind of slots into place. And again, there's no consequences for her breaking like COVID rules or like sleeping around unprotected and doing like risky things that she knows are risky but just like stops caring about. No consequences for any of that. There's nothing that like makes her crash and burn and then she has to reevaluate and raise herself up and change her life and make like active choices to better her life and herself. That doesn't happen. She just like meets the perfect person and it just works out, you know. That's that's how novels are structured, right? It just kind of works out, you know. No, I didn't like that book. That was a 1 star for me. Like maybe a 2 if you wanted to be generous. It is readable. It's not like full of typos or plot holes. It's just full of unlikable characters and situations that didn't feel very realistic. So I don't recommend that one. The last book is a good book. I am still reading it. It's April 2nd, but I started reading it on March 31st, so it counts. I don't think I'm gonna do a video of it just because it's not a sapphic book. Pretty sure. I'm 99% sure. It seems like a straight romance, or maybe not even a romance really, but the characters are straight. There's no gayness happening, and I don't think there will be any. It's The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. Caitlin Starling is a fantastic writer. She's primarily a horror writer, but her subgenres vary. She writes sci-fi, she writes, this is sort of like a gothic fantasy, a sort of historical feeling gothic fantasy. I don't really know where they are in this, but it's got like post-World War vibes, but I don't think it's actually World War because they talk about theism is dead after the war. Like just no one believes in religion anymore. So I don't know where they are or when they are or what this is, but it's got like an old vibe. Like they have carriages. It's about this woman who marries a doctor and it's sort of a business arrangement. She's not really looking for love. She just needs, you know, she's a woman in society and she can't really fend for herself. She needs a husband or some sort of caretaker. So she makes a pact with this man who also doesn't want to get married. She moves in with him in his haunted mansion and discovers that he's got sort of this shady, magical, supernatural past and that he's been lying to her about several things. And it's very good. I'm not done, but it's looking like a 5-star read. I think Caitlin Starling's a really, really good writer. I've read most of her books. All of her other books are sapphic. I'm pretty sure this is her only non-sapphic book. Yellow Jessamine is a good novella. Last to Leave the Room's a great novel. The Starving Saints comes out in May by her. That's also like a sort of medieval horror fantasy that I'm really, really excited for. That's one of my most anticipated books of the year. I believe she just released a novel maybe called The Oblivion Bride, a novella. I think that like just came out. I haven't read that. My library doesn't have it. I'm so sad. I want to read that. I think this one, The Death of Jane Lawrence, might be her most popular novel. I don't know if that's just because it's straight. I do think the pacing is a bit more standard. I associate Caitlin Starling with sort of a slow pacing, but in a very engaging, atmospheric, luxurious way where you sort of really dig into these characters and the vibes. It's very immersive. This is a bit more fast-paced from her, by her standards, but it's very sort of, I don't know, like a regular pacing like you'd expect from most books, I'd imagine. I guess it's kind of fast-paced. Like, she gets married pretty quickly. The plot does progress pretty quickly, so maybe it's fast-paced. But in a good way, I'm very much enjoying it. But I don't expect to have too much to say, other than it's good, and you should read it if you're really into gothic horror. Is that it? I think that's it. That's most of the books I read in March. I read a lot of books in March. Maybe I should have made a video on Animal Instinct, because I kind of ranted on that year. But yeah, that's fine. That's just a fun wrap-up. I might turn this into a series. I might do this monthly, because I read a lot, and it does take a lot of energy to make reviews on every single book, and some books I just don't have that much to say, or I don't feel like I'm qualified to say anything. Sometimes a book is too good, and I just can't do it justice in a review, and sometimes a book is so bad that I just don't feel like reviewing it. Although if it's really bad, it actually is quite easy to make a video on, because you just rant about all the terrible things, which is what I did with Animal Instinct. I made a list of just terrible things. You can read my review for that on Goodreads if you want a bit more in-depth of a look into that one, or you can just forget about it and not think about it ever again, the way I kind of wish I had. But that won't stick with me. Some books I have a vendetta against. I remember how bad they are forever, and I hold a grudge. This one I will probably just mostly forget about. I've already mostly forgotten. If I held that big of a grudge against it, it would have gotten its own video. But whatever, it's just a bad book. But yeah, might make this monthly series, we'll see. You can subscribe, and then you'll see next month when that video pops up in your inbox, or doesn't. That could happen. But it probably will, unless I read a bunch of books that I really want to talk about. But I might do it in another month. Maybe not April, maybe May, who knows. But if you do want to see what I read next month, this month, in the future, like, subscribe, you know, follow along. I have other videos. If you want to see in-depth book reviews, I do a lot of those. That's mainly what I do. If you want to suggest me a book, go for it. If you want to tell me I'm wrong and you loved Animal Instinct by Amy Shearn, go for it. You're wrong, but you can still tell me your opinion in the comments, even though it's wrong. Yeah, that's it. Have a good day. Or don't. I don't care. I mean, I do. Have a good day. Have a good day. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Read a good book.